from the production studios of Epic Financial Strategies here in Red Bank, New Jersey. We are Infinity X, giving a stage and microphone to human excellence in the constant pursuit of creating infinite sales opportunities by giving a stage and microphone to people that are doing things that you want to understand and you want to see more of what they are up to. Welcome, everybody, to Infinity X for this Tuesday, July 19th. And we got the rebirth of a legend, right? We got one of the original folks who joined us back at the very beginning of Infinity X. We have the debt buster himself. We have Murray Beaulieu joining us this evening. Murray, how you doing, brother?
Still above ground, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Happy to see that you're above ground. A lot of kicking. You're up to a lot of amazing things. And folks, this is Murray Beaulieu. The company and the program is Debt Buster. And what we're going to walk through this evening and what Murray is going to share is really a shift in mindset for not only the business owner, not only the person who is looking to accelerate wealth, but also those that are looking to try to navigate relatively challenging times. And folks, replay on weareinfinityx.com and We Are Infinity X YouTube. And Murray, we've gotten to know one another, brother, over the past couple of years. It's a pleasure to call you my friend. But what I would love is, because as you know, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you're from. So if you would do the good folks out there, the good service of just sharing with them a little bit of your background, where you're from, and and what led you up to the career path that you chose.
Sure. So thanks for having me, Dave. Good to see you. Great to be here. This is a great show. I was one of the, I think it's one of the first 5 shows you did.
You were.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you've come a long way. So well done.
Thank you.
Anyway, it's a great ecosystem to be in. So I encourage everybody to hang out with Dave more often, because there's some amazing guests. To go back and look at his archives. Holy cow. Just to start off with, plastic surgery used to be a taboo subject, but now when you mention Botox, nobody raises an eyebrow. Hey, you're a Tony Robbins fan, right? That's called Breaking the State.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So anyway, let's get serious, ladies and gentlemen. So I went to Notre Dame. Go Irish. I was in the Army 5 years as a logistics officer, left as a captain, served some time in the Cold War, about 20 minutes from the Russian front. It was pretty exciting. And had a 35-year career in high-tech manufacturing, high-tech electronic manufacturing, starting off in the manufacturing end and then ending up in the financial management of factories, equipment, labor, overhead, ending the last 17 years at 3 different Fortune 500 companies. The last 17 years, I was at a $15 billion semiconductor company that no one's ever heard of. But I was the controller, and we had 9-figure budgets that we were managing. And luckily I had a lot of smart people working for me. We saved a lot of money, tens of millions of dollars. And it wasn't me, it was them. I was just the guy who was the extroverted talker, and they did all the work. So it was great. The reason I'm telling you that, we had cutting edge systems. This is semiconductors. You know what those are, right, Dave? Like yes. Computer chips, right? If you look at a motherboard computer chips they're getting more and more dense. There's in cars, you hear about the automotive supply chain problems with chips because there's so much electronics in cars now. 20 years ago, not so much, but now everything is driven by electronics. So anyway, the point there is we had high-tech stuff. We had Intel calling us, asking us how we manage the finances of our factory. It's a unique manufacturing process. And despite all that, okay, here's the irony. The reason I'm telling you that is not to brag, but despite all that, I did not know how a mortgage was calculated, how mortgage interest was calculated. And that was an embarrassing moment. And I figure if I, who was in the finance space, didn't know this, there's other people who don't know it. And as I live day to day, I'm finding that not many people know the reality of what they're really paying.
Yeah. And Murray, can I play in that space for a second? Because now, when did you have that epiphany that you understand that? Was it while you were on the job? Was it after after you got off the job? What did that look like?
Very embarrassing. Okay. So thank you for asking, actually. So I had refinanced 3 times while I'm, in the job. I've lived here 25 years. Every time I've refinanced, I was looking to do one thing. Dave, you know what that is, right? Get a lower payment.
Lower payment. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's what 90% of people are doing, I think. I think it's safe to say. But I didn't look at this other stuff happening. I really didn't look at the whole picture of what I was doing. Got some bad advice. At the end of the day, it was my responsibility. I ended up using some of the money to help pay for my kids' college, which was ludicrous. That's a whole nother story. College expenses. Holy cow. Yeah. But anyway, so I took an early retirement 3 years ago. And now I'm looking at the mortgage from a different angle than I was when I was just trying to get lower payments. Now I'm looking at it like, when am I going to pay this sucker off? I've been living here 25 years.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's when I had the epiphany that I was an idiot. And I didn't realize that I wasn't going to pay it off until I'm 80.
Oh my God.
And I've been here 25 years.
Sure.
So and then I looked deeper and I saw the interest I was really paying, even though I did get a little bit of a benefit because I had lower monthly payments, which gave me more cash flow. Cash flow is important.
Yep.
Right. And I did use the cash flow for good things and not just go buy more motorcycle. I never had a motorcycle, but stuff like that.
It wasn't a total lost opportunity cost there, right? You did do. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
But people need to know what they're getting into. And, when you're closing, at a refinance or buying a home, you got a stack of 6 inches, right, of paper, and the guy's handing you this and you got to sign it. No one has time to read all that crap, right? You're just signing it, and they're giving you a truth in lending statement is stuffed in the middle strategically, hoping that you'll miss it. And if I'd have looked closer at that, I'd have seen that, I was really on the 4.5% mortgage. Okay, listen to this. This is key. On the 4.5% mortgage, if I pay the whole mortgage off over 30 years, I'm actually going to be paying somewhere in the neighborhood of 70%.
Whoa.
70%. Now I'm talking the volume of interest you're paying as it relates to the amount you borrowed. So let's say I borrowed 200 grand. At that rate, that would be, I would end up paying 340 grand. Is that right? Something like that for for the mortgage. In other words, 70% of what I borrowed, I'm going to have to pay back, not 4.5%. That is a key learning point. If anybody who has a mortgage needs to hear that again. Okay. If you refinance recently, particularly a 30-year mortgage, because the effect is more staggering. Here's the secret sauce, Dave. Ready? So banks have figured out that the average mortgage lasts about 5 to 7 years, right? And at which time people either refinance or they move. So they crafted this formula called an amortized closed-end loan. And if you look at the formula, you need to have a PhD in PhD-ness to figure out what the friggin' numbers mean. Buried in the formula of about, it looks like hieroglyphics, is the interest rate that they signed you up for.
Right.
But the output is such that, the total interest percentage, which we call the TIP, the total interest volume, they don't want you to know that, but I can tell you it's a lot more than the interest rate they're quoting you. And if that's not bad enough, it's skewed toward the beginning of the mortgage. You ever notice that? I don't know if you ever looked at your...
Sure, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And why do they do that? Because they know after 7 years, most people are going to be...
Or you're going to refinance, or you're going to do... you're going to do something that, is going to trigger the fact that it's like having term insurance, Murray, right? Most people outlive the term life insurance. And so what do? They keep the money, Yeah.
Yeah. What 3% of people claim in term claims? I mean, that's kind of we won't talk about that. That's your wheelhouse. So that was quite enlightening. It was like the lowest point in my professional career when I made that discovery. I got physically ill, seriously, and it was a real hard conversation with my wife. I'm the finance guy managing, the home finances, and I really feel like I dropped the ball. So I would encourage everybody to go look at their amortization schedule if they haven't already, and look at the interest they're really paying. Dave, we are conditioned as a society to think rate and payment.
Yep.
rate and payment. And it's not like, the real answer is not, can I make the payment, which is, that's what they're trying to make you focus on. Can I make the payment? 0% down now and you don't pay us for 2 years. Well, they're going to friggin' nail you. They're not doing that, to make you feel better. But, because we're thinking rate and payment, we're overlooking the key question, which is, what does this really cost?
Right.
And in order to know that, you need to know how the interest is calculated. Now, here's key point number 2. You ready? Hope people are taking notes. First key point is how mortgage is calculated.
Right, Murray. By the way, let me just put out to the folks: if you have a question for Murray at any point during the course of the conversation, please put it into the chat. I'll hit that. Everybody's obviously going to stay on mute, but I'll hit that in a few minutes. And by the way, replay on weareinfinityx.com, We Are Infinity X YouTube. Back to you, Murray. Point
awesome. So, know what you're paying on your mortgage, particularly if it's 30-year. It's really not what you think it is. To the point where I'm going to say this. I think it's almost borderline criminal that they get away with calling a 4% loan a 4% loan when you're paying 70%, And I've talked to mortgage guys who do this for a living. I was on a call with a mortgage guy, and they've refinanced people for 20 years, and she was physically crushed when I showed her the math. She didn't know this. This is her business.
And she didn't.
She didn't know it. She's a great person.
Yep.
And obviously, I'm not going to use her name, but she says, God, I feel so bad for these people. And it's not like it was a total loss, but people don't know what they don't know, And I know real estate guys that don't know this either. So imagine how the value you can give your clients if you were in the mortgage or real estate industry, if you can explain that to them. I mean, you're going to need a mortgage. So everybody who gets a mortgage has the same issue. But if you're the guy who can point that out, you're going to be the hero to your clients, right? So getting back to the second point, I wonder, this is something else I discovered as I dug into this. Every type of debt has terms and interest rates, but the formula for determining what you pay is different for every type of debt. And that's something that I kind of knew that, but I didn't think of it in that term. Okay.
So essentially what you're saying is that the calculation for interest on a credit card is different than the calculation for interest on a mortgage?
You nailed it. Now, I know intuitively you know that, but you don't think of it like that, But like on a credit card, there is one good thing about that is that you get 30 days of free money. If you pay the whole bill off, you pay 0 interest.
Right.
But if you make the minimum payment on a credit card every month, the formula is calculated so you'll never get out of debt. I hate to laugh, but it's like your end date of paying off is infinity, because it's and not Infinity X, it's infinity. Right. Because you're paying like 1% of the outstanding balance plus interest. And if you look at that, it's like you'll never pay that off. And that's what they want you to do. They want you to make the minimum payment because they want you to stay in debt because that's how they make money. So let's carry that forward. So mortgage interest is completely different than credit card interest, which is completely different than a car loan, which is completely different than student debt interest, which is completely different than a line of credit interest, which is completely different than blah, 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 blah. Now, you don't know that. Most people don't know that. I didn't know that until 2 or 3 years ago. And so you can't compare a 3% mortgage with a 3% line of credit, because it's completely different underlying math.
Yep.
I can tell you that a line of credit has much more favorable interest rate calculation than a mortgage. Mortgage is about the worst because it's not only the biggest debt you have, but the calculation is so brutal, how much interest you actually pay. It's a closed-end amortized loan. A line of credit is an open-ended, simple interest calculation based on average daily balance. Completely different math than a mortgage, right? You with me?
Yep,
And
totally.
so there's a way, and you can do this on your own. You can borrow money from a favorable calculation like a line of credit to accelerate paying off your mortgage, which has a brutal calculation. You can accelerate the payments to cancel out interest. And so you're leveraging one type of debt to pay off the other. This is the concept that banks use every day.
Sure.
Banks are great at making money. Here's point number 3. Banks are great at making money from money. And they have complex algorithms going on so that they're squeezing every penny out of every penny they have. and they're
Absolutely.
earning interest. Okay.
Yep.
And they're making money off you.
The banks historically and currently have the greatest velocity on a dollar of any institution on the planet. It's unbelievable when you see how much money the banks make off of leverage, off of other money. It's insane.
That's what you mean by velocity. That's a great. So you go into a little bit more detail on velocity, because I like that. Say that again in a different way.
So banks are one of the biggest owners of life insurance on the planet, right?
Ooh.
They have billions of dollars of life insurance. And what do? They use deposits as collateral for dump-ins to insurance. And what do? They lend that out at high rates on things like mortgages, things like credit card debt, et cetera. And they're getting a higher velocity on that dollar because they're earning money where they lent it, and they're earning money in the insurance at the exact same time.
That's brilliant, man. I didn't know that kind of detail, but I knew overall. So I'm gonna give an example that everybody knows that's kind of lines up with what you just said.
Yep.
So, Dave, do you have a checking account?
Unfortunately, yes.
So how much interest does the bank pay you on that?
Absolutely zip.
Absolutely zero, which is the industry average. Right. So
I'm of course right there, Mark.
Yeah. So they're turning around and they're loaning that out to somebody.
Yeah.
They're taking your money, which they're paying you zip,
Yep.
and they're loaning it out to somebody in by way of credit card debt or personal loan or a mortgage or a whole bunch of different opportunities where they can make money and pay you nothing. It's called interest rate arbitrage. That's a simple example that I think everybody, and by the way, they have another feature called fractional reserve banking where they can do that 10 times. With one of your dollars, they can load it out to 10 different people.
Unbelievable. Man.
So they're good at making money with money, right?
Yeah.
And newsflash, they may not be acting in your best interest all the time. So, there's a whole bunch of banking concepts going on, sweeping, float, interest rate arbitrage. We talked about strategic payoff.
Yep.
And so all these things are going on, and you as the consumer need to understand, you don't need to understand the math. You don't need to understand the details on that, but you just have to know that there's a reason why that banks, the largest building in any city you drive through usually has a bank name on it. I don't know if you ever noticed that.
Absolutely, every time.
And particularly annoying is the fact that most of the stuff can be done virtually now, and yet they still have these friggin' huge buildings, right? I mean, what kind of margins are they making? Good grief. Yeah. We got in our little town here in New Hampshire, we have, it seems like we have a bank going in on a corner about every 2 weeks. It's just, that's all we need is another Mexican restaurant and a bank. It seems like all we have here. Anyway, so it's important to people to understand how much they're really paying, and then and at a high level, the real amount of interest they're paying, depending on what they're doing, so they can make good decisions. And let me give you an example of a peeve of mine that is hurting people because of their misunderstanding of debt. Okay. So I wish I had a nickel for every time somebody came to me and said, gosh, I just got refinanced at 2%. That's like free money.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not free money, pal. You go look at what you're really paying.
Yep.
I mean, if you were really paying 2 cents on the dollar, that would be great. But that's not what you're paying. In that case, he's probably paying about 40%. So that's dangerous.
Yep.
Because they take it to the next step and they say, why would I pay off my 3% mortgage when I can make 6% on this stock or something,
Sure.
So if you just look at interest rates, and if you assume the math is the same, why would you? But the reality is the 3% mortgage, you're paying really 60%. And, I'm going to argue that if you can pay off a 60% interest that you owe is the equivalent of making 60% on an investment. Plus there's no taxes on what you save on paying off interest early. Whereas,
right. And by the way, the federal government also puts a cap on the amount of mortgage interest that you can write off now too.
That's right.
It's not unlimited anymore,
That's
so
right.
That even caps you out even further.
That's right. And so the other argument that I get, let's take that argument too, is, it's okay, mortgage that I get to write it off, but why? You still have a big chunk of it. Even if you could write it off, even some amount you could write off, which is not as much as you used to, it still doesn't justify paying 70% interest just so you could save, write off 10% or something. You're still paying a whole lot of interest.
Yep.
So, excuse me. Wow. Geez, how unprofessional. Anyway,
only for the best on it.
Jeez. Wow. So I told my wife, I thought she used too much eye makeup. She looked surprised. Anyway, so
you're the king, Murray. I swear to God, folks, we are Infinity X, stage and microphone with human excellence in the form of Murray Beaulieu. The concept is Debt Buster, and we're just going through his journey and the epiphany of the discovery that, even the sharpest minds in finance and the sharpest minds in general are overlooking the finite details of things as, what we deem to be as simple as mortgage interest, right? And the lack of real understanding about debt. Replay at weareinfinityx.com. We are Infinity X YouTube. Question for Murray, please put it in the chat. So Murray, you have this, you have the epiphany, right? And then you take, you took the early retirement package from your organization. And
yes.
What did you decide to do? What did you do next?
Before I answer that, I want to stick my thumb in the wound a little bit more on debt. Okay. Just, sure. But I want to answer that, but think about the interest you're paying on a debt. Okay. Regardless of what it is, let's think about mortgages, because most people have a mortgage and that's the biggest. The money you pay on interest, you don't get back. It's just gone. It's not helping you reduce principal at all. It's pure bank profit.
Yep.
Now, if that doesn't irritate you, the two highest expenses you have in your life, on average, for the average person, are what? You probably know this, Dave. I mean, one of them you can't avoid, and the other one you're probably not going to be able to avoid.
Right. Well,
taxes. And interest.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm not going to help you much with taxes here, but interest is one of the biggest things you're going to pay. And any interest you pay, you don't get back. And the interest you are paying puts you on a contract with the person you borrowed it from, and you can't get out of that contract until you pay that debt off. Think of the opportunity cost of that people overlook. That is preventing you from investing in some asset that could get you a return.
Yeah.
That could prevent you from retiring early. That could prevent you from traveling, visit your family, from doing things you want to do with your money. There's a huge opportunity cost when you're paying somebody else interest. Go ahead, Dave.
What I was going to say is that, I think U.S. News and World Reports did a study. I think they were the ones that did the study. It was like 2017 or 18 or something like that. But they said the average American household loses anywhere between, on average, $2 to $5 million during the life cycle of that household to lost opportunity cost. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, when you think about it, because it's not only money that flowed off my balance sheet, but it's also what's the rate of return that I could have achieved.
Yes.
Money that flowed off my balance sheet as well.
That's right. That's right.
And
Dave is the kind of guy who can show you ways to get a return on that, right? So he's just the guy you need to talk to. But anyway, the opportunity cost is something that people don't overlook. So there's a lot of reasons why. I'm going to ask this simple question. If there was a way, ready? Here's the elevator line. Ready? If there was a way where you could eliminate all your debt, including your mortgage, in as little as 5 to 7 years without changing your lifestyle, your budget, or your cash flow, wouldn't you want to learn a little bit more about that?
Ooh.
All right.
Yeah. Now, who's going to say no, folks? Ask yourselves the honest question, right? If you had the opportunity to eliminate negative amortization based debt, right? Money flowing off your balance sheet, interest that you have a cap on the write-off, right? And or you're not writing off at all in 5 to 7 years without changing a lifestyle in any way, shape, or form. Would you sign up for that?
Or would you at least want to learn more?
You want to learn more?
Yeah.
My answer is yes. I would want to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So that's what happened to me. So when I left my day job 3 years ago, I was entrepreneuring on LinkedIn.
Yep.
As you know, I'm a big LinkedIn fan.
Oh yeah.
Connect with me on LinkedIn, by the way. That'll be one of our calls to action.
Yeah, and folks, by the way, Murray is a Jedi Knight in the space of LinkedIn, but 20,000 followers or something?
18 and a half. 18 and a half. Yeah. 18 and a half connections. I have over 20,000 followers. Yeah.
Guys, that doesn't grow on trees. I mean, 20,000 followers and 18,000 connections means that there is a massive ecosystem there, right? But go ahead, Murray.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Everyone should be on LinkedIn. It's if you want to fish, that's where the fish are, right? So I met a guy on LinkedIn, Mike, I hope he's on the call. And I was trying to sell him something. And we started to know each other, and he says, you got to look at this program. And Mike happened to be, by the way, not only a former mortgage guy, but he also sold insurance. And but we didn't even talk about that. We just talked about debt.
Yep.
And he introduced me to an award-winning program. And it's not just any award. There's a company called Ernst & Young, which is one of the largest accounting firms in the world. You've heard of Ernst & Young, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I knew Ernst & Young because they were my auditor for 30 years. They were in my underwear 6 months of the year as a manufacturing finance guy, right? And
so they really knew you intimately.
They knew me intimately, man. And my goal was to get them out of my office so I could do the work.
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't know they had this thing called Entrepreneur of the Year Award. So they gave the company behind this program I'm going to tell you about with Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2008 because of the disruptive nature of this program and because of how much benefit it is to the consumer, to the client. This is a program which will do exactly as I just mentioned. It will eliminate all your debt without changing your lifestyle or your budget or your cash flow, or without refinancing or debt consolidation, or without getting a second job. Okay. And the best analogy I know is it's like a financial GPS.
Financial GPS. I love that.
And it will get you to where you want to go, which is debt-free, as fast as mathematically possible. It's just using math. And there's a reason I brought up all that stuff in the preamble here. It's using the same banking principles that banks use, only on your behalf. In the background, there's 35 pages of banking algorithms. The guys who wrote this, the guys who created this program, hired a bunch of NASA engineers, no joke, and
Really?
College math PhDs, and they spent a lot of money, and they kind of recreated. It's like having your own bank, and it will. The second thing it does is it knows the type of debt you have, and it knows the different math behind all the debts you have, right?
In terms of like the calculation for the interest rate and everything, Murray?
100%. That's right. So it recognizes, you put in your income and your expenses. It's like a cash flow management system. And it will tell you where to move your money, just like a GPS, to eliminate debt as fast as possible, just using math and just using all you have. It doesn't require you to stop to sell your car and ride a bicycle. It doesn't require you to live on beanie weenies. This is not Dave Ramsey. This is you don't have to get a second job, and you just follow the steps, and it's a living dynamic system. It recalculates just like a GPS. Wow. If you're driving down the road and the bridge is out or the traffic jam, the GPS will tell you it will reroute you. Take the next right. You still got to move the wheel, but the GPS is telling you how to get there the fastest way. And
so the program, so it sounds like the program also has like a level of data aggregation intelligence in there too. So you can like link to certain things that you're doing in there and it automatically will update for that. You
can choose that option, or you can do it manually. Basically, you just update it with what you actually did. If you can do online banking, you can do this. Okay. So you basically have your online banking maybe once a week. You have this program, you just tell the program what happened that week. And you just, it's like a cash flow thing. It looks like a checkbook.
Yeah.
Okay. And it'll get to some points where now it says, okay, now you got to do this. Most of the time you're telling the program what actually happened. And then it's going to get to a certain point where it says you have enough, discretionary income built up. Now we know what expenses are coming down the road because you've input your expenses, you've input your debt, and then you've input your income. It knows when you're going to get paid. It knows, what expenses are coming up, what debts are coming up. And it says every once in a while, and it changes all the time. On July 23rd, based on where everything is, you're going to move $326.19 from checking to MasterCard XYZ.
Oh man, that's amazing.
And it will figure out of all the debts you have. It doesn't matter how many you have. And it really shines when you have more than one, because if you have more than one debt, how do you know which one to pay off first, you know?
And it's taking into consideration, okay, you're moving that $319.27 from this account over to the Amex card or whatever it is, but then it understands what type of interest that you might get charged and when on the Amex card. And so it strategically would then have you pay the Amex card or whatever it is prior to getting hit with that interest charge or something. Am I on the right?
It has all the math built into it. Yeah. So it knows, it'll look at all your debt.
That's
and it'll figure out which one is going to be the biggest bang for your buck to get rid of first. And it could change if life changes. And it's not always the one with the highest interest rate. Okay. That's a factor, but depending on the math, like we've talked about, some things may hurt you more than others. Some things may help you to get rid of it, to free up the money that was going to debt A, and now debt A is gone. So the money that was going to debt A can now accelerate paying off debt B. So it reacts in real time. So you're not stuck in a static spreadsheet. So you can add, people sign up for this because it eliminates debt, and it does it really, it does it optimally. Okay. Optimally, using cutting edge math, but they really like it even more because it has the ability to predict the future. So you can put in what if scenarios. What if I want to buy a car in 2 years? What if I want to go on vacation next year? So you can put these things in and it will recalculate, and you can know the cause and effect of every financial decision you make before you make it.
Isn't that incredible?
It might put you out of business, Dave. It's like a financial advisor in a box.
Nah, it's not going to do anything like that, my brother. I can tell you that because
no, I won't. But
Murray, what's going through my mind also is you've seen the Epic Wealth Builder as well, and what we do also is run those what if calculations, but we do it taking into consideration, hey, what if inflation changes? What if tax rates changes? When you couple something like what you're referring to with what we do,
that'd be huge.
You're talking acceleration there.
It would be very huge. So a quick story. If Brian is on the phone, on the call here, Brian is my senior partner. He does all the trainings. You got to hear this story. So Brian and his wife, Brooke, are massive coffee drinkers, apparently. Yeah. And I'm going to get some of the details incorrect, but the thrust of the story is going to be correct. Yeah. Apparently they went to Starbucks a heck of a lot. And apparently they always bought the large. Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, some people are real big coffee drinkers. And so keep in mind, Brian is a senior level guy in the company I work with. He's an equity partner, and he, you know, but his wife is the one who uses the program. Okay. Which is cool. So his wife said, you know, I'm thinking about buying you a $500 super espresso, you know, does everything you could possibly imagine coffee maker. And he goes, no way, we can't afford that. And so she turned the computer around.
Oh, I know where this is going.
And she goes, look at this, look at these numbers. And I'm going to get the numbers a little bit wrong, but the concept is still going to be right. So Brian, I apologize in advance if you're watching. It's something along the lines of, here's the cost of the coffee machine. And she put it in, it recalculated and pushed their debt out further because that's $500 that they weren't expecting. Right. But it reacted to it. It's not like the end of the world. It can react to real life events. But she also went into their budget and reduced the Starbucks budget by whatever, you know, by some amount to compensate, because they didn't have to go to Starbucks. I think they're still going to Starbucks, but not as frequently. Right. Right. And so the net result of all that, and it was proven in the numbers in the dashboard, is I think they saved like 9 months of debt.
Oh my God.
I don't know, some number, 6 months, whatever it was, it justified the payment of buying the coffee maker. And it actually, you know, she sweetened the pot by saying, you know, I'll even offer to make the coffee for you in the morning. And so they get together every morning, they do a little prayer and stuff. It's such a great story. But you can project stuff like that. I had another guy who changed his phone bill because he wasn't using all his Verizon minutes, right? And so he dropped down from the $150 a month plan to the $120 a month plan.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you don't have to do this. You don't have to change your lifestyle, but you have the tools to evaluate in advance what would happen if you did. He had been using it for a year. He loved it, but then he started seeing what was possible. And he must have saved like 4 months of debt by doing that. And so he did that, but he knew, he could see before he did it what the benefit was. So so just to close the loop on me, I ended up buying, I was a client first, and I'm going to save, we ran the numbers, we run the numbers for everybody, and I'm projected to save $110,000.
Wow.
$110,000 on mortgage interest.
Yeah.
And even better, Dave, even better than the money is the time. I'm 64.
Yeah.
I can't afford, time, you know how it is when you get older, time is more important. So I'm going to cut my debt from 30 years to 7. And without changing my lifestyle. Now I'm actually going to beat that, but without changing my budget or my lifestyle, just follow the steps. It's just using money. It's using all the money. Everything I have is being, it's like putting everything on alert. All my accounts are being used. There's nothing sitting around doing nothing. Every penny I have is either earning interest or canceling interest. So it's using these banking principles on my behalf. And I don't have to know the banking principles. I just have to follow the steps, So it's pretty cool. And they guarantee the number 7 years. So it's a no-brainer. At least run the analysis. I would recommend. Right?
We are infinityx.com. Replay. We are infinityx.com. We are infinityx YouTube. Stage and microphone with human excellence. This is Murray Beaulieu, the program that he's referring to. We refer to it as Debt Buster, a financial GPS, a debt reduction GPS, where smart technology, right, will identify. Folks, we've talked about so many things here tonight. We talked about the different calculation of interest rates on debt. Many of us, many people are completely unaware of what that calculation actually looks like. We just think, okay, there's debt, there's interest. No, not all interests are created equal, obviously, right? So mortgage interest is different than home equity line interest, which is different than credit card interest, which is different than car loan interest. And as a result, you have to be able to keep up with that. But who the hell has the time to be able to do that, right? And, we want to think about it. If you look at today, folks, right, national inflation, minus even food and energy, 9.1%. I would make the argument that we are in double-digit inflation right now. And, interest being credited to me on my assets in traditional banking is next to nothing, right? Now, are interest rates rising a little bit? Yes, they are. They have to offset this inflation in one way, shape, or form, but they're not doing it as anywhere near to the degree as aggressively as they could. But I also don't think that they want to accelerate us into the Great Depression Part 2. And I would make the argument that they might have been a day late and a dollar short to making those decisions. But the wealth erosion on your dollars is massive right now. Everybody's talking about you have to keep up with the Joneses. Well, the Joneses are inflation, right? So if you identified that your wealth in your checking account is because, you had a little bit of a delta between a 4% and a 2% mortgage, right? And that money was moving into the checking account. Well, guess what? If you're not getting a 9.1% interest rate on your cash, you're losing buying power there.
That's
and
right.
Donating money over a 30-year period of time in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to the financial institution. And what are they doing, by the way? They're making money off of that, right?
That's right.
Whether you run a business or you're just looking to better manage your finances, if you don't understand how debt leverage, completely different, right? Leverage is a different conversation, but if you don't understand how the debt on your books works, you really, really need to look under the hood. And, and I think that was something, Murray, that you recognized. And so you became a client of the organization that you work with. And then what happened? Then
I said, look, I got to share this with as many people as possible because I didn't know this stuff. It was embarrassing, but enlightening.
Yeah.
And I'm on a campaign I feel like we have the cure for cancer here. I'm on a campaign to educate people on this. I mean, I think there's a reason why they don't teach this stuff in school. I don't think it's a coincidence. They don't give you a manual when you have debt. I didn't know this stuff. Again, I'm going to say that again. I didn't.
But by the way, the institutions, they'll hand out massive amounts of debt to you in the form of student loans.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
Right,
and then when I was a student,
yeah.
I don't know if this happened to you, but they used to. There was vultures on campus handing out credit card applications. Congratulations, you qualify for a credit card. Sure. And at the time, I didn't know anything about credit cards, but it was cool to have a credit card. So we were sucking those down,
And they tell you to take cash advances on it, right?
Yes,
that's right.
And so they're preying on. So there's a famous quote that somebody had. The success of the financial institutions is based on the illiteracy of the consumer.
Oh God.
And you see that more and more. When's the last time you saw a car commercial where they actually told you what the friggin' price was? No, they'd say how much money down and so money a month.
Yep.
It's designed to confuse the crap out of you, so you can't compare anything. You can't figure out what the heck it actually costs and how much of that is actually finance charges.
Yeah.
It's designed to to confuse the consumer. And so what was I going to say? There was something I wanted to.
And by the way, hey Murray, the other thing that they don't do, they don't proactively give you a call when interest rates become more favorable. To say, hey, do you want to refinance this? Even though it might not be the right thing to do anyway.
They never do.
But
yeah.
It's just set, forget, and leave you in debt.
Yeah, and remember, all that is banking profit, or whoever gave you the money's profit. I'm not saying all debt is bad. I mean, there is good debt. You've got to know how to use it. It's a two-edged sword. But I will say that if there was a way to pay less interest, wouldn't you want to learn how to do that? Even if it was good debt, you can, with our program, you can run an analysis and see, does it make more sense to invest in investment A, or pay off the debt you have now? And you can see how much interest you're saving, and you can compare it to the return you would have got to see if it makes sense. I'm not saying always pay off the debt, but at least you'll have data to make a better decision. It's very powerful. And so I feel like, I want to share this with as many people as possible. I want to try to level the playing field with people. And I just want to go into the last phase of this real quick and talk a little bit about the history of the company and then how it relates to the gravy, the juice that we can give it now. So this program is using banking concepts. And one of the big concepts is a thing called offset account. Okay. And you don't have to know what it means, but when they originally wrote the program in 2004, the offset account, and when they paid all these NASA engineers, you had to have an offset account of a line of credit, usually a HELOC, right? And so it used the HELOC sort of like a checkbook.
Oh, sure.
All right. It took advantage of the favorable interest of a HELOC. You put your check into the HELOC, and then you wrote checks against the debt, against the HELOC to pay off debt, because the HELOC was always more favorable than, the credit card interest, the mortgage interest, and, whatever. Sure. They beta tested this in 2004 to Denver with 400 people. A year and a half later, 95% of the people were still using it, which was beyond their wildest dreams. And furthermore, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but something like 70% of those people who were still using it achieved 20% better results than they anticipated. Okay. And the reason they achieved, so that tells you, number one, it's easy to use. Anybody can do this. If you can do online banking, you can use it. And number two, it gives you financial information to make better decisions. And so it has like a gamification element where you get better at it because you can see the results as it recalculates. You can see the answer. And, do you like that answer? No, well, then do something else, and it gives you instant feedback. And so people were getting smarter. And so that was like an added benefit. So people buy this for the debt elimination, but the users come back to me, the clients come back to me and say, what we really like it for is to be able to, this is for life. They can predict what they're going to do. What if I want to buy a new car? What if I want to go on vacation? So the original program was you needed a HELOC as the offset account. In 2008, what happened, Dave?
Housing market crash.
So no one could get a HELOC.
Get a HELOC anymore.
You couldn't do a HELOC. So they couldn't sell the program anymore because you needed a HELOC.
Yeah.
Now, existing users could keep going because they already had a HELOC, but so they had to re-engineer it. So they came up with a new offset account, a simple checking and savings account. Okay. So now you're using it like a checkbook because that's what it is. So you didn't need to have good credit. Well, if you had a HELOC, you needed to have good credit to get a HELOC, but now you didn't need to have good credit. You didn't need to have a house. You just had to have a checking and savings account. And 90% of the clients we have, we start them off on that. Actually, everybody, we start them off on checking and savings, and you can use a HELOC if you want. Okay, but you don't have to. So you have an option. There's a setting there. You can change it. Which method do you want to use? You can get better results with a HELOC, slightly better usually, but it depends. What you can do is put in a what if scenario. What if I bought a HELOC? What would that do? And you could see if it makes sense to get a HELOC. And it will use the HELOC as the offset account. So that's pretty cool.
Back then you could write off HELOC debt, so you can't do that anymore.
You could. Yeah, you could. Another reason to get it. And so I want to bring you into the conversation now. And here's the really exciting news. As a client, I'm even more excited than I am as an agent. Okay, is that they have come up with a third offset account. Which gives you the ability to build wealth while you're paying off debt. And, it uses a specially formulated insurance product. Okay, a type that you yourself actually have available at your fingertips for your clients.
Yes.
So imagine while you're paying off debt that you can build equity at the same time with the same dollar.
Oh, yeah.
So you're using a special cash value. Not every, it's got to be designed with this in mind, right? And you know what I'm talking about. You can do that.
Yeah.
So that the emphasis is on the cash value, not necessarily the death benefit.
Yep.
Right. So you're putting most of your premium in that direction, and then you have access to that, and you're using it like a checkbook. Right. And you're borrowing money from yourself with not going through a bank, and you're paying yourself back interest, and there's no taxes on that. I'm not going to walk through the whole scenario here. Let's just say that imagine, it's just a super, I'm very excited that I can build my retirement while I'm paying off debt.
That's right.
And I'm getting a late start here. I was a typical 401k guy because I grew up in a corporate environment, and they emphasized, the stock market. Wall Street is in bed with 401k companies, and they somehow they got the advantage in marketing, and so that's what everybody's learns is 401ks.
Rob had Barry Dyke, who wrote Pirates of Manhattan, on his podcast not long ago, and he broke down everything that is happening there. Between Wall Street, 401k, target date funds, and all of the different challenges that exist with that. Remember, 401k was only established 1974. Up until that point, everybody was using pensions. Everybody was using insurance. Everybody was using the predictable outcomes, right?
Yeah.
When 74, all things changed.
Yeah. But we've all been conditioned that's the best solution. But it's better than nothing, but it doesn't take into, you got taxes, you got uncertainty. Let's just say this. I wish I'd have known about cash value life insurance, 30 years ago. This call would be from the Mediterranean. Okay. I'd be on the beach somewhere in South France.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Folks, let me just bring you up to speed a little bit on what Murray's referring to, because this is, something that we do obviously at an incredibly high level, and something that is in my wheelhouse. So when a life insurance policy is structured appropriately and, done with the right insurance company, right funding, right strategy, there's a lot of things that go into the design of this, including analytics of, decisions that you've made up until now in your cash flow. But when it's built the right way, it creates a really, really interesting dynamic, because there are ways that you, as you're building cash value in these insurance policies, as you're funding it, that you have the ability to take loans against the equity that you have in the policy, which is that cash value, right? But that loan is actually against the death benefit of the insurance. It's not withdrawing the cash value out, which you can do, but you don't necessarily want to do it. So that loan is against the death benefit. But what happens is, because of the fact that it's a loan against death benefit, cash is actually remaining intact inside the insurance, right? You have less equity, but it's remaining intact inside the insurance. And so you wanted to say something, Murray?
I hope everybody got that.
Yeah.
Basically, you're almost earning money twice on the same money.
That's exactly what's taking place.
It seems like it should be illegal, but the guys who wrote the laws on that happen to be investing in insurance. So there's like a loophole. I don't want to say loophole, but keep going. I mean, think of it. So if you have 10 grand in cash value, I'm going to break it down real simple, and you borrow 1,000, it's the 10 grand still grows as if it's 10 grand. And the 1,000, you can do whatever you want with it. And then you pay yourself back the 1,000. So it's not only growing the 10 grand originally, but it's the money you borrowed from yourself.
Right.
You're paying yourself back with interest. So it's growing even faster.
Yeah,
and there's no taxes on the transaction. But go ahead. Sorry to
No, it's an exciting concept. It's one that doesn't get celebrated, because I think that when people look at whole life insurance, in particular, people look at whole life insurance and they compare the accumulation of the cash value to markets. And it's like comparing an apple. It's like comparing an apple to a hand grenade, because they're two completely different mechanisms, right? You have extraordinarily low risk on the insurance front. You have any type of risk, investment risk, with, the higher risk or the higher returning investments carry just intrinsically a higher level of risk, right? That's called a standard deviation calculation. And that they do teach you in college, right? So people who are finance experts out there, they ought to know that, right? But with that reward comes the potential downside. Right. And so, number one, that's not what you're comparing. And number two, naysayers in many cases have never experienced bad markets. Right. They have never experienced times when markets have done what they've done the first half of this year. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen in the second half of the year, although I have my opinion about that. But most people are not accustomed to an S&P 500 that's negative. Most of the people are not accustomed to a NASDAQ that's negative, right? And what I can tell you is that our clients, I would suggest that the people that we have relationships with that have had cash value life insurance exposure this year are quite happy. Quite happy. There's something to be said for diversification of risk, right? Money's like matter, gets created all the time, never destroyed, just moves around, right? But to have consistency there and to be able to leverage a dollar, to be able to help to pay down debt while still earning an interest rate on that same dollar is a very, very powerful tool. Right. So that's, I'm really, really excited to hear that, Murray, because that's
we'll be talking, Dave. We'll be talking
for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of life insurance. Look, I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. Before I learned about this cash value, if someone mentioned the word life insurance, and I can bet, and don't take this personal, but I can bet that a lot of people out there feel the same way. I would say, if someone mentions life insurance, I would say, give me the clicker. I got to change this channel.
No doubt about it.
Because as awesome as the death benefit was, it's just not it doesn't motivate me to do anything. But when I learned what you can do with cash value and all the benefits, of which one of them you just mentioned is the stability. No, not the, what's the word for stability? The low risk. Okay. At my age, I can't afford what just happened in the last 6 months, and the closer you get to retirement, you can't afford that. So the ability to use something like that. And then, one of the reasons why you may have some people just don't have the discretionary income to afford maybe the level of cash value life insurance that they'd like to have. Well, now they can get there by paying off debt and get to the level of discretionary income so they can get on the road to financial freedom. I'm still in debt, Dave. Okay. I'm not out of debt, but the level of, here's the real benefit. We haven't even talked about this, is my stress level has gone down to zero, right? Because I'm still in debt, but I have a roadmap of how I'm going to get there, like a financial GPS. I know the steps to take because I have a roadmap.
Yep.
And, you know, I haven't even added the cash value thing yet. I'm getting ready to do that. Okay. So anyway, it's very exciting. I could talk about, you know, eliminating debt. I just really want to make sure everyone understands some basic debt concepts. I hope everybody learned a little bit out of this, and to, you know, to learn what's possible and to kind of think differently.
Folks,
and there's just a lot here. So go ahead, Dave.
Now, folks, we are Infinity X, stage and microphone with human excellence. This is Murray Beaulieu. The program is Debt Buster. Replay, we are infinityx.com. We are Infinity X YouTube. And, you know, Murray, now that, you know, and we're coming up on the top of the hour here, but, you know, now that you've made this discovery and you're actively working with your company and you're expanding your own personal brand and your business, you know, where do you see yourself going, you know, and what do you see as future possibility, and why do people want to continue to follow what you're up to?
Wow, that's a lot. So first of all, I just want to clarify one thing that I should have told you at the beginning. The actual company, the program name is Money Max Account.
Yes.
Debt Buster is my kind of branding. Okay. Just so, but and the company is United Financial Freedom. They're out of Utah. It's a privately held company. And the guys who founded this company have extremely massive integrity, and they really want to help people. And you can tell they're the kind of guys you want to work with. I mean, I really feel blessed that I have this opportunity. So long-term, and let me add another little gravy here. I like to partner with guys like Dave, other people in financial services, because I like to help guys like Dave do more of what they're already doing without losing focus. And how can I do that? I can help him get his clients out of debt. And by the way, when I say, and I wanted people to think of this, two things when it comes to debt. For some reason, I get this a lot. Do you have any debt? No, I don't have any debt. You can't help me. Well, do you have a mortgage? Yeah. There are tons of people who don't think mortgage is debt. So make a note of this. Mortgage is debt. You know, okay. And the other thing I want to say is you don't have to be broke debt for this program to work. We have a lot of very rich people who are so rich that they don't realize how much money they're wasting in interest.
Yeah. And
we get on the program. We had a client that saved, I think, $2.5 million in less than 2 years in interest. Okay. So this isn't just for people who are broke.
That's incredible.
If you have a mortgage, if you've refinanced in the last 5 years, you need to look at this program. I'm saving 110 grand, and I've been here 25 years. So if you have a new mortgage, the meat is on the bone at the beginning of the mortgage. When you're paying all that interest, we can save you a lot of money. So I would encourage anybody that has a mortgage, take a look at this. College debt, everything else also.
Where can they find you, Murray?
They can find me. The best way to find me is on LinkedIn. Okay. Do a search on Debt Buster. There's only me. Okay. My real name is Murray Beaulieu. It's a hard name to spell. You can look it up in the show notes. You can, you know, I'm the only Murray Beaulieu on LinkedIn. And if you want to go to a website that has a little bit more information on on our program, you can go to moneymaxaccount.com, all one word, moneymaxaccount.com/Dr. Murray, DRMURRAY.
Love that.
DRMURRAY. Yep. My initials are MD. So we were big fans of the Three Stooges episode, Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. But anyway, I digress.
Well, folks, we are infinityx.com. This is one of the original pioneers. This is my brother Murray Beaulieu. You know, the brand is Debt Buster. Moneymaxaccount.com. United Financial Freedom, and you can find Murray on LinkedIn. And, folks, when we're running Infinity X, we're looking to add value and open your eyes to possibility of how you can take golden nuggets, apply it to yourself, apply it to your business, apply it to your personal finances, apply it to, your marketing efforts, et cetera. And identify people that you want to learn more about what they're up to, right? What their ecosystem can bring to you, right? And what types of possibilities that they can create. And the relationship with somebody like Murray Beaulieu is no different, Murray, I can't thank you enough, brother.
It's been a thrill, man. I appreciate the opportunity. You're very brave to have me back. So no, but thank you. Very generous. I appreciate it.
No problem, Murray. The honor and privilege was mine sharing the stage with you, folks. We are Infinity X every Tuesday, 7 p.m. East Coast time, bringing megapreneurs, people that are doing things differently that you want to pay attention to each and every single week. Replay weareinfinityx.com. We are Infinity X YouTube. This has been Murray Beaulieu. I want to say thank you for spending some time with us this evening, folks. And until next week, we will see you on another episode of We Are Infinity X. Murray, have a wonderful night, my brother.
Awesome. Thanks. You too, man. Take it easy. Bye.